Anybody thinking about a certificate, degree, or maybe even an MBA? Anybody? Yeah. Well, I got a few programs for you. I ran to Mr. McClenahan earlier with the University of Nevada, Reno. He wants you to be on his consideration list. I can guarantee you that. Krista Watson with Pearson has 250 programs with your name on it. Georgetown has a physical program and an online program, and I know Michael Schnelly, the CMO at UNC Keenan Flagler School in lovely Chapel Hill, North Carolina, wants you to be on your consideration list. What I want to do is take you through an important journey, the decision-making journey for students. And you've kind of already heard a lot of this today, haven't you? I want to take you back to 1987. For a lot of you, you weren't even born. I'm looking at you, all right? And frankly, I got to be honest. I'm a little bit tired of talking about millennials, so I'm not even going to do that. I'm not going to break out the stats. What I'm going to tell you about is this. In 1987, my dad, who was in World War II, by the way, rest his soul, worked in a factory for 52 years. My mom was a secretary in a hospital. And almost every Sunday, over the pork roast and pot roast and beans and everything that my mom would make, my mom would say, "Robbie, those guys with the suits driving those nice cars in the parking lot in the hospital where you were born, where I work, you really got to look into that." My older brother would always say, "Rob, you need to go to a nice liberal arts college. That's really what you need to do." My influence points for school were effectively my mother, my brother, my dad, and a few other people. So I end up in Ithaca College in New York State. I have a degree in healthcare administration and gerontology. Anybody go to Ithaca or live there? Yes. Go Bombers. I don't even know if you're supposed to say that anymore or what the politics are. But and you're doing what now? Exactly. And you probably have what, an English degree? Yep. Exactly. So I'm in Ithaca, and because you've been there, and I know Mr. Hickey's been there as well, it's 15 square miles surrounded by reality. Let's just say I had a really good time in Ithaca, and I don't work in a hospital. But I did graduate, and I did end up one evening with my twin brother who went to Tufts University in Medford, Mass, if we get any Boston people. He went to Tufts and got an engineering degree. We're on the tee one night going to the Red Sox game. Me, I've got a 40 in a bag and a lottery ticket. And I'm thinking to myself, as my brother's telling me, I don't know whether I should go get my degree at Carnegie Mellon where I can go virtually for free, or my MBA. Right? I'm no Russ Glass. I did not go to Duke, and I did not get my MBA. My brother did all those things, and he's sitting there figuring out what to do or what job offer to take. I'm thinking, I hope the lottery ticket in my back pocket works out, or I finish this 40 and pass out at the Red Sox game. And that's how I started my decision-making journey. Now, fast forward to today, I have the most killer job at LinkedIn. I'm in sales, so I can actually afford to send my children to school. It's a blessing. It really is. I also spend a lot of time talking to students. Just a few weeks ago, I was at ASU, where my son's a freshman. And I was talking to 300 students and alumni from all areas of the school. The football player was in the front row, and I'm like, well, that's encouraging, until he came up and said, "Mr. Humphrey, it was great. Can you sign this form, please?" So my decision-making vantage point is based not on a ton of data. In fact, I'm a little bit exhausted talking about big data. What I've immersed myself in is the experience of talking to students who are not only completely connected to these processes of making decisions of where to go to school, what to study, and so on, but they're also filled with anxiety and fear, and sprinkled in with a little bit of narcissism here and there. And I'm qualified to talk about this subject My wife's a social worker at NC State in North Carolina, and she's fully booked 7 days a week, literally 7 days a week, with students coming to talk about their outcomes. To compound this, I have 3 children, 2 boys, one, as I mentioned, at Arizona State University. I have another one who's a lot less like Alex P. Keaton, which is the first one. Some of you will get that reference. Some of you don't have any idea what I'm talking about. And they're on 2 different paths. JD is a fella that should already be on the list of anybody here who has an MBA program, anybody here who has anything to do with sports management, or anything to do with a potential degree program that's going to help him do a higher education degree. That's exactly what the path is for him currently, and I think that could change. For Shane, that path's a little bit different. Let's just say Shane's GPA isn't quite, it's in the 2s, and that's where he's at. So Shane's a pretty interesting guy. He was actually the first high school kid to ever write a blog post, a post on LinkedIn, our long-form post, ever. We're actually at the University of Virginia, sitting on the lawn with my other son, looking at a possible school. And he says, Dad, I'm going to write a post. I know you work at LinkedIn. I know you want to edit it. I'm not going to let you do that. I have a lot of journalistic integrity. I said, go ahead, son, do that. 3 hours later, 15,000 people read his post. Hundreds of people comment. He has been writing ever since. So I think that LinkedIn is a great, both hidden sort of secret of sorts to students on their journey, and simultaneously a massive potential equalizer. So I mentioned sports management. Easily, JD can go, and I have this discussion because he's a swimmer, an accomplished swimmer. Did not make the ASU team. If you know anything about swimming, you know they hired Bob Bowman as their coach. They trained Michael Phelps for the Olympics and a bunch of other Olympic hopefuls. Therefore, my son is on the bubble, no longer in the swimming mix. However, he's very interested in sports management. I think that's because he's a boy, he's a teenager, his prefrontal cortex is not completely developed like every other person we're dealing with. But the interesting thing here is Shane, on the other hand, can actually go to LinkedIn, he does, and look up the skills that are on people's profiles. He's probably connected to a bunch of you here. I know he's connected to a bunch of my colleagues at LinkedIn, and he's very sophisticated about it. He doesn't make the mistake that most teenagers make, which is when they're not on LinkedIn, or most professionals make, which is they send a default message. He doesn't do that. He takes a handcrafted message and connects with people that have these user experience, illustration, and writing skills in their profile. And he reverse engineers using the alumni tool, which, by the way, is the biggest hidden secret on LinkedIn, as Russ had mentioned, and the most important utility that you can utilize for decision-making and other purposes. And he looks and says, well, Dad, I don't know that I want to go to college. I'm thinking that's great, because what's going to end up happening, you're getting into some liberal arts college that can cost $65,000 a year, and you're going to go there and basically flunk out after a year and a half. So I'm down with whatever kind of cool thing you come up with. So what he comes up with is, hey, I want to sort of hack my education. I noticed that on this list of skills, General Assembly has a course in user experience design. I know that Todd Barlow, who's an adjunct professor at Carolina and works at the SAS Corporation where I live in Raleigh, Cary, North Carolina, has a lot of experience in this subject. So what he's doing, I think, is evidence of people that are on this consideration list that's growing and growing larger and larger, filled with options. And that consideration list also is something that makes marketing quite complex. I did a talk recently and I said to the audience, marketing is an absolute cakewalk, and I believe it is. It's an absolute cakewalk, unless you're marketing to students. And that's pretty much anyone, from the age of kindergarten till whenever. Education marketing is the most complex marketing vector that you could possibly undertake. I have no idea why you're in this room, why you're marketing to students. It must be a passion play, because it's extremely hard. So the answer to doing this effectively is in the journey that I shared. It's not the complexity of the data, but rather the journey that exists. So the other thing that's happening is there are a myriad of connections occurring in a rapid fashion. So I said to JD, you want to be in sports management. That's great. You want to work, for example, for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a Patriots fan. I'm from Connecticut. I'm a New England sports fan. I don't know how my son roots for the Dallas Cowboys. It actually baffles me. But that's what he wants to do. So I said, well, JD, I want you to go on LinkedIn, and I want you to look at the largest longitudinal study in the world of career outcomes, because it already exists. We have the profiles of 380 million people, and we have everywhere that they went to school, where they worked, where they got their internships, where they ended up. Just like my friend from Ithaca, who has an English degree and now is a head of marketing for an organization. Then I said to JD, well, you need to start kind of actually executing on your game plan here and look at this alumni tool and figure out who at either your school or in your sphere of the alumni tool actually worked at the Dallas Cowboys. And lo and behold, there's 3 people. And this is where the biggest opportunity for us as marketers really exists, frankly. We're going to have 2 sessions coming up that are going to delve into the details of this. But the opportunity is to be essentially a coach, essentially coaching students and building connectivity with them so that you can help them achieve their goals. And it's, I think, that simple. What students don't want to do is publish on LinkedIn necessarily. The benefits are amazing. They don't necessarily want to hit the button. Even my son, as I'm over him saying, click the button, he doesn't want to reach out to these people. We need to be coaching, and you can call it content marketing. You can pay us a lot of money for it, and we're going to be real sophisticated about it. But really what it is it's our destiny to actually coach kids, all these people on the consideration list. And the easiest way to sort of think through the notion of the mindset, as I like to say it, is thinking about my son on South Mountain and being mindful of, number one, where people's head is at, right? Shane's like an artist, right? He's very, very representative in many respects of the personal mindset, whereas JD, on the other hand, is a little bit more buttoned up when he's the persona of that professional mindset. And it's definitely 2 different worlds. I'm super concerned that we're going to create, as marketers, atrophy by just simply doing the same things over and over, right? So I spend a significant amount of time, which brings me to really my second point of what we should all be doing, which is being helpful. I spend an inordinate amount of time looking at all of your content on LinkedIn and elsewhere. And some of it's amazing. I think the biggest thing we need to be doing in marketing is being helpful. In this example, you actually see that we can connect actual physical events, like doing a talk at Tempe at ASU, and then using that content to connect the digital world with the actual physical world. And these types of things occur all the time. We should be harnessing this and creating better communities versus just always exclusively defaulting to enroll in our program. The last thing I'll leave you with that we need to be heavily focused on is being different. Anybody a Kendrick Lamar fan? Anybody willing to admit they're a Kendrick Lamar fan? Right on. When I first started listening to Kendrick, because my kids are teenagers and that's what they all listen to, and J. Cole and everything else, I said, wow, he drops the N-word quite a bit. I don't know if I'm really comfortable with this. But after time, I started listening and learning about Kendrick, and it turns out, super confident person, entrepreneur, really brilliant writer, and singer and rapper. And if you really sort of think about his perspective and this imagery, you'll come away with the fact that the pen is, in fact, mightier than a sword. But you absolutely have to have the confidence to do it, just like students need the confidence to press the button and send that email, just like they need to have the confidence to really connect with a lot of people in advance of making a really large decision, a decision that impacts many, many times their parents' wallets. And lastly, be different in the sense of being creative. There are 2 sessions coming up that are going to be really get down to the depths of this. We have an amazing 2 panels coming up. One with Maya Pope-Chappelle, and it's really around how to harness content marketing and how to harness publishing. There's also some cool things she's going to talk about with regard to how we can coach, nurture, and help students differentiate themselves. How we can also with another panel that I'll actually be moderating. And after seeing me talk you, it'll probably be a small group of people. But that will be on advanced strategies, advanced marketing funnel strategies, and how to actually get down into the depths of having a full funnel strategy. To take all these people that we know, all these students and potential students that we know that are on our consideration list, and differentiate ourselves from all the usual suspects. That's my quick journey, and I actually have time left, and I won't be taking questions, but I'd love to connect with all of you, and I appreciate you paying attention. Thank you so much.